Make a start. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our latest MarkLogic community event here in August. We're really pleased to see everybody join us. What we just wanted to start off was a quick recap. This is already our fourth event. Time seems to be flying fast. And we've already had some fantastic content that we've covered over these past few events. We had Sabina and Ahmed from APA talk about their citation tracker in our kickoff event in May. We also did an interview with Helen Lapel on taxonomies and implementing taxonomies in your environment, your business. We had a great chat with David Cassell, who was demonstrating his GUI to allow you to create TDEs. And we also heard from James Kerr from MarkLogic talking about the roadmap for MarkLogic Server going forward. In June, we heard from Datavid about their Datavid Rover platform, which is a fantastic set of UI and microservices built on top of MarkLogic that allows you to get to your ROI very quickly on your complex data. And Mitch gave us an overview of our latest Spark connector and our plugin for VS Code. And then last month, we had the Clever Llamas guys on to talk about their training offering that they've done, which is something I think is very interesting to our community. We often hear from customers that it's difficult to retain or build new talent in MarkLogic. And they've done some fantastic small module-based training, which you can build your own custom course. And it even comes with some post-course support. So yeah, well worth checking those guys out as well if you're looking for some more information on MarkLogic. If you want to get to any of that content, it's all available. Please feel free to use any of these QR codes to jump you to that content. But also anyone that's registered for today's event early next week, we'll send out a newsletter with links to all of the content that you can go and view at any time. So if you don't get a chance to grab any of the QR codes or the URIs in the link today, don't worry, we'll send them out to you later on. One last thing that I want to cover as well regarding the community is this only works with your input. So first of all, thank you all for attending. It really does justify us doing this, that everyone seems very happy about them. But please, we'd love to hear from you. Please share your stories about what you're working on. There are always other people in the community that would love to hear about what you're doing, where you're seeing value, where you're seeing issues, and spread the knowledge. Right, getting on to the agenda for today. I think we've got a really exciting intro session from Imran Chaudhri, who is our Chief Architect for Healthcare and Life Sciences here at MarkLogic. He's going to be giving a taster for a webinar that's going to be running on the 14th of September, all around the convergence of AI and private data. So how you can use the data that you've got held in MarkLogic to help interact with your LLM and improve the accuracy and reduce the hallucinations. So a really interesting session, I think, coming up from Imran. And then we're going to follow that with Michael from ESILABS, who is going to be talking about some of the e-discovery platforms they've built, some of the work that they're doing. And we saw this presentation a while back and we just loved it. So we thought you'd all like to see it too. So we'll hear from Michael later. One thing that I just wanted to touch on before we hand over to Imran is our new community portal that we're actually launching today. So this is an opportunity, a custom space where you can all sign up, and it's a new location for interacting with MarkLogic. So it'll have all the latest news and events on there, product updates. It's a single place to get to documentation, to downloads, to GitHub repositories. We're trying to wrap everything into one single location for you. There's also a customer forum, so you can ask questions of the community. There'll be people from MarkLogic dropping in and out on that forum as well, and hopefully we can answer some questions on there. And you can also contribute. So if there are knowledge base items, blogs, things like that that you would like to commit to us, all you need to do is sign in with a Progress ID. So if you haven't done that before, when you first go onto the site, it's open to everybody. But if you want to contribute, then you just log in and sign up for a Progress ID through there. And really, it's us getting started. It's a first point of contact. We're building it out. We've got lots of new features that we are going to be bringing to it over the coming months. But it'd be lovely to see you all come and welcome together on the forum. So with that, I think that's enough from me, and I'll welcome Imran onto the stage and hand over to you, Imran. I can't hear you at the moment.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Is this better?
Yes.
All right.
That's it. We got you.
All right. So I will go ahead and jump in and share out my screen. Let me know if that's looking good.
Yep, looks good.
Right. So coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about convergence of generative AI and private data. And we'll be giving you some of the test results that we got recently from working with ChatGPT in the Azure cloud, and sort of the benefits that you can get with ChatGPT and MarkLogic and Semaphore together. So just a quick disclaimer: we'll be sending the slides out so you can read the details there. But basically, the gist of it is that the progress is not selling generative AI directly, and so as a customer, you need to try to understand which one and how you should be using them. So some of the questions to consider, one is, are you considering using generative AI? And you know, this is kind of funny, but I just literally yesterday night saw a LinkedIn article that said, you know, all of the executives in all companies need to start thinking about this and being educated on this. And I honestly believe that if you're an executive in a company where you are not thinking about it yet, you need to, because it's your competitors are, and if your competitors are using it and becoming way more efficient than your own organization, then that becomes an existential threat to your running of the business, right? So I think the answer for the first one should by default be yes to all organizations at this point in time. The next ones that are of interest are, you know, are you interested in combining your private data with generative AI? And for most companies, the private data is sort of their liquid gold, so to speak. It is sort of their way of gaining competitive edge and competitiveness in their industries, right? So that should be a strong yes as well. And then, you know, as soon as I started using Gen AI systems, I really rapidly ran into the biggest issue with them, which is hallucinations. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. And so there are not just hallucinations, but there's a lot of other issues that need to be dealt with. And you have to be very careful with your use cases and the capabilities that you present to end users, because sometimes they may not be aware of the issues that the answers might have embedded within them. Then also, because enterprise proprietary data is very, very important, people tend to compartmentalize at least their most sensitive data sets. And being able to sort of allow that sensitivity to pass through to the Q&A of the generative AI systems is also very important to understand and determine and figure out how to make happen. Then you know, from a security perspective, you can always work with the services that third parties are providing, but you should also, if you are really worried about security, consider being able to spin up and run Gen AI systems within your own virtual private cloud or within your own data center. Next question is these Gen AI systems have what we call short-term memory. That's sort of the conversation that's happening, but also people are trying to figure out how to use vector databases for enhancing that memory and allowing Gen AI systems to recall much larger chunks of data or knowledge that they have not yet been trained on. And so if you are looking into that space, one thing to really think about is sort of the next question, which is, do you you want to think about how to build out the long-term memory in a way that is independent of the Gen AI model that you use. And this is really important because in the industry, the progress has been sort of wild. Like every week, you get new models being published and or updates to existing models. And if you spend a lot of time picking a model and encoding all your data in that single model, then when the next model comes out, even if it's just version 1.1 of that model, you have to redo all that effort and energy and consume all that energy again. So this is a really important piece that people need to start thinking about very carefully. And then the other thing is you want to use your data across different models and for different use cases and for different users within a given use case as well. And so that's a really interesting thing to think about, because you want to give the right answer to the right person based on their role in your organization and based on sort of the intent of the question that they're asking. And so these are all very strong pieces of the puzzle that we will attempt to answer in a couple of weeks. So one of the interesting quotes I heard probably about 3 or 4 months ago was by Kathy Wood. I am in no way endorsing her ETFs, but I do listen to her in the No Talks. And that is, the winners of AI will be those who know how to use AI and have proprietary data. So what we're seeing in the industry is AI is becoming ubiquitous. AI services are becoming ubiquitous. It really is a race to the bottom in terms of availability of AI and probably the costing of it as well. What's really the competitive edge that companies have is their private data. So you need to think about how to make that data ready and usable and reusable by not just one Gen AI system, but multiple Gen AI systems across multiple sets of use cases. So what are AI systems like, ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, BERT, and generally speaking, I found the acronym GOLEMS amusing. But the GOLEM acronym is not widely used, but it stands for Generative Large Language Multimodal Models. And when we talk about multimodal, we're not talking just about language, which is where they started, but we're also talking about audio files, video files, images. And a really interesting one that I saw recently was being able to look at a real-time fMRI scan and project what a person is seeing. So sort of the technical aspects of telepathy, basically. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's generating language or images or audio. It's been trained on a lot of it. And sort of it's taking its training and transforming the input that it got to additional output that it wants to do. Other descriptions, generative artificial intelligence, Gen AI for short. And this describes what they do. So I kind of like this one. Large language models, this is what they are. Basically, they're a large language model that is a neural network that has been trained on lots and lots of data. Their sort of job in life is to predict the next word in the sequence. And so text predictor is another way of thinking about them. But they can also be known as agents or writing assistants or chatbots or simulators and things like that, right? From an AI trustworthiness scenario, there are lots of problems with these Gen AIs. The biggest one that is usually front and center and most obvious is that Gen AI systems, because they're trying to predict the most likely set of words that should come next, they are really confident when they state something, even if it's incorrect, and they are incorrect about 15 to 20% of the time. So in human terms, this is kind of like having memory errors. Or the positive side is, well, it's creativity, right? They're they're able to synthesize new stuff from things that don't exist. On the negative side, and it depends on intent, they could be considered lies, right? There have been lawsuits in the industry around this where defamation has occurred because the AI system completely made up events that didn't happen. So this is something you, as in the corporate world, you have to really worry about and figure out how to mitigate. Then there's other issues with models. They may be biased because the data is biased. They may have reasoning errors. They definitely have knowledge cutoffs because it takes a year or two to train the more sophisticated models. They have also, from a robustness against bad inputs, even if a Gen AI system is trained to be helpful, harmless, and I'm forgetting the other H that Claude has, for example, you can sort of prompt engineer it and have a conversation with it to get it to do things that it's not typically supposed to do. So robustness against bad inputs is something that's also very important. And then depending on the task you're trying to do, some specific tasks they might have hard problems with. We're going to go into next in a couple of weeks. We'll go into sort of running through multiple architectures and figuring out different ways of addressing these problems. And the gist of it is really that if you don't have good quality data, then you're going to really get bad answers to begin with, right? So that's sort of an overall understanding of what needs to happen, right? You have to have your data set up properly without bias, filtered out, and quality controlled so that the answers come back the way they ought to in an ethical, non-biased way. On the other thing is, even when you have the good quality data, you still are going to have hallucinations and other problems with Gen AI, right? What we found is this MarkLogic data platform, or the combination of the MarkLogic database, data hub, and the Semaphore products, allows us to provide repeatable, explainable guardrails around Gen AI systems. And the data platform can be used as a transparent, human readable long-term memory for these Gen AI systems very naturally, because we deal with semantics and language, and these Gen AI systems really want to consume semantics and language as well. The goal really is to improve the trustworthiness of the solutions you deploy, and we are confident we can help you in that space. We just completed a rather large POC with a large pharmaceutical company, and we're able to get complete transparency as to the content that was used to synthesize the answers, the questions that people were asking. And that's really it for today. My contact information is here. If you want to reach out to me before the next couple of weeks, I'm available to entertain calls and interact with folks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Imran. Let me just share my screen again. Hopefully that's whet your appetite a bit for piqued your interest for the Vision event that's coming up on the 14th. You can use the QR code here to sign up, but I think, as you've seen, there's some very interesting discussions to be had, and I've seen a preview of what Imran's going to present, and it's mind-blowing what you can do, and some of the value we can add there. So please do sign up. We would love to see you there. There is another event coming along, I think a week later, for those that couldn't make the 14th, and it's recorded. So sign up and you can get access to the recording as well. Thank you, Imran. If you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and Imran will be hanging around so we can answer those questions during the session or a Q&A session at the end. Thanks, Imran. With that, I would like to welcome Michael from ESILABS. As I mentioned earlier, we met Michael a few months back now when we were talking about some work that he was doing, and he gave a demo of some of the platforms they've developed, and we were blown away. So we really thought you guys would like to see this. So Michael, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your time today. My name is Michael Will. I'm Chief Executive Officer of ESI Laboratory, or ESILABS as we refer to ourselves. We as a company provide services and products to participants in the legal and financial services sector. I'm here today to talk about one of our particular products. It's called the Investment Advisor application. Why is that application of importance? Well, because investment advisors hold a lot of money. And when you hold a lot of money, you attract a lot of attention. And there are people that want to do due diligence on you. So the IAA application is a due diligence tool designed to review the performance and general capability of two types of entity. There are firms which are known as investment advisors. And what you're looking at when you're doing your due diligence in connection with investment advisors is the composition of the investment portfolio, what kind of securities they hold, the strategies they might apply, their compensation arrangements, and probably most importantly, their reputation. Are you doing business with someone who has a very good reputation? So in that context, you want to learn a little bit more about their involvement in civil, criminal, and or regulatory proceedings. Now, firms don't exist in isolation. They employ personnel. And in particular, we're talking about investment advisor representatives who, like investment advisors, have to be registered with the regulators. And when you're doing your due diligence on them, you want to know something about their qualifications, what exams they've passed, their employment history, together with background information like their involvement in bankruptcy proceedings, civil litigation, criminal litigation, and regulatory investigations, etc. So who is this? Who are the parties doing the due diligence? Well, they fall into three general buckets. There are the regulators. They operate at the federal, in this case, the SEC, or at the state level. And what they're looking for is to make sure that the investment advisor is in compliance with all laws and regulations. Investors, they might be institutional investors like Vanguard or wealthy individuals. They're basically making a decision on where to invest and to make sure that just like the regulators, there is a significant or complete compliance with laws and regulations. And then you have service providers. They're people basically looking to market services to these investment advisor firms. They might be prime brokers, custodians, and insurers. Now, doing this kind of exercise is quite difficult because there's no single consistent golden source of information. So you have to aggregate all your data together from multiple sources. And these sources will include regulatory disclosures. In particular, one of the main sources of information is a regulatory filing with the SEC called Form ADV. You also have information contained in Form 13F, which relates to the securities holding of the firm in question. What you will also want to do is to combine additional information from commercial data vendors. They often have information relating to fund performance, for example, and also portfolio composition. Then, in addition, what you'll be doing is looking for publicly available information. So you're doing open source intelligence or OSINT investigations via internet searches and internet scrapes. And when you're gathering all this information together, what you will find is that it comes in multiple formats. So on a regular basis, on a daily basis, actually, we're dealing with HTML. That's the format for the part 1 of Form ADV and for OSINT results. PDFs, you will have part 2 Form ADV information. And sorry, there's a typo there. It should be part 3 Form ADV information. You will also have data coming in from regulatory sources in XML format. That's the Form 13F data. You'll have information coming in via API, which is, again, firm performance data and portfolio data. And you'll also be receiving information in CSV format, for example. Again, that might be performance data or Form U4 data relating to the investment advisor representatives. So those are the individuals. All this information is big. There are currently 20,012 as of today investment advisors registered with the SEC. There are more investment advisors who are registered at the state level. And collectively, since 2018, these 20,000 investment advisors have generated 208,373 filings. Filings are made yearly, so there has to be at least one filing, and every time there is a material change to the circumstances of the investment advisor, data has to be refiled. The filings can be long. The largest Form ADV filing for Part 1 that we found is for Goldman Sachs & Co. LLC, which runs to 6,351 PDF pages. That's just for a single filing. So that deals with the investment advisors. In terms of the people who work for these advisors, the investment advisor representatives, we hold records of 440,000 investment advisors. In aggregate, the total amount of data points that we have within the system is approximately 710 million data points, which we've acquired since January 2018. This information is available online, but you only have the latest information available at any one time. There's no historic data source that you can go, certainly online, to capture. So what we've been able to do is to pull down this information and capture all the historic data that exists in connection with these firms and individuals. So we've got data coming in from different sources in different formats. That's ordinarily quite a challenge, but it's less so because of MarkLogic. The advantage that MarkLogic gives us is it's a multi-model database. It incorporates a built-in search engine and application server. And probably its secret sauce, as far as we're concerned, is you can use a single language X-query to do multiple things. You can do query and search, you can do business logic, and you can also present the data as well. So pretty much everything that we need for this particular type of application in any event is all available, all built in within MarkLogic. We do call out to Java on certain occasions where the functionality is not built into MarkLogic. For example, when we're doing blacklining, we have to call out to separate Java applications to do that. But wherever possible, we try and do everything within MarkLogic. And that gives us a tremendous advantage because we can develop quicker, cheaper, and our applications are extremely efficient because we're not swapping between languages. And we've actually used MarkLogic not just in the investment advisor sphere, but also in other spheres to build applications. We've been involved in the commercial and residential mortgage arena, the mass tort arena, and we also have a great deal of expertise in handling structured data, particularly in the context of e-discovery applications. So MarkLogic has proved to be an extremely efficient way of dealing with these unusual data sets that we frequently come across. So in terms of the application we're going to look at now, which is the investment advisor application, we're going to show you how data is acquired, aggregated, investigated. We can perform some analytics and also show you how data is delivered primarily through the app. We also have a user configurable no-code API application. It's beyond the scope of this particular presentation, but it is an extremely powerful way of users defining the data that they want to receive in the context of downstream systems. So if I can now move on to the application itself, I'm just going to log in. And I'm going to go to this tab here, investment advisor firms. So these are all the investment advisors currently registered with the SEC at the moment. As I said, there's probably 20,000 of them. And each row represents an investment advisor with their name, together with certain key information. And the key information that we're looking at in particular is whether they've had any things that the regulators think people should know about, like civil or criminal proceedings. So that's the advisor, DRP, or disclosure reporting pages. We want to know how many individuals are employed, investment advisor representatives. We want to know whether these investment advisor representatives have themselves been subject to any kind of regulatory or criminal proceedings. We've got information about the jurisdiction they're incorporated in, together with their assets under management. And what you can see here is that if I click on this link here and sort, you can see that we have some information about the number of versions of this particular form that have been filed. So here we can see that Harbor Investment Inc. has actually made 446 filings since 2018. That's an awful lot. And what surprised us when we were building this application was the velocity of change. Frequently, this information, it's not unheard of for it to be updated daily. So what we have is a process which acquires this information on a daily basis. What I'm going to do now is to go from the macro level down to the micro level, and I'm going to look at one firm in particular. That's AllianceBernstein. And we can see that there are multiple entities called AllianceBernstein. They're all affiliated. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose this one, AllianceBernstein LLP. I'm going to view here. Now, this is the data for this particular firm that we've aggregated from multiple sources. And you have a table of contents, which basically breaks the data down into particular subsections. And this actually mirrors the data source. In all our applications, you can always go back to the data source itself on the internet. So I'm going to open up the SEC website, which is the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website. And we can see here that we have access to the latest form of ADV. This information here is all in PDF format, although part of it is replicated in HTML format in a minute, which is where we'll go to. But we have brochures and relationship summaries. These are binary formats, so they're PDFs. And if I click on here, what you will see is that we have a semi-structured form. There is some narrative text. And it is this information that we are spending a great deal of effort on to scrape. So we're capturing the information contained in red. So if I now go back to the platform itself, what I'm going to do is to navigate to a couple of sections. So we're going to go to item 3, which is the form of organization. And we can see that this is a limited partnership established in Delaware, and its fiscal year end is in December. And then if I want to learn a little bit more about its business, I can click on item 5. And this is basically an overview, a summary of its financial performance. And if I go to row 63 here, so the item 5F2C, we can see that they have just under $6 billion under management. Now, all this information has been generated via a daily web scrape. And what we do is when we do the scraping every day is we capture the page that we extracted the information from. So if I click on this eye here, what you will see is the HTML page that we derived this information from. And you can see that we have annotated this HTML page with the name of the XML element that we've applied to it. So we always have the ability within the system to track back to our original source. The information itself is voluminous. If I click on this button, Show XML, you can see that there is a tremendous amount of data that we've captured for just this one particular filing. an awful lot of data. So that is, in fact, we store all our information in XML by default. Of course, we can publish to multiple formats like JSON, CSV, Word, PDF. It really doesn't matter to us. Now, if I click on this drop down here, you can see that I have access to all the previous versions. So if I want to look at a particular version, I can go step back in time, which you can't do, of course, from the live website because they only have the latest version of the information available. You can do version changes to see how particular sections have changed over time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all previous versions, and I'm going to select a particular section, which is item 5, and I'm going to see how it's evolved over time. And you can see that I pulled out all the item 5 provisions, and anytime that you can see a colored cell, that means there has been a change. So previously here, you can see we have the number that starts with 456, and that changes in the subsequent filing to 409. So it's a very powerful way of just tracking changes over time. The most recent version is, this version is on the 23rd of August 2023. I'm going to close this window now. So having looked at data that's been generated via HTML online, now let's take a look at other types of data that we've aggregated together in order to do our due diligence. If I now go to this tab here, parts 2 and 3, what we're looking at now is PDFs. These are supplemental documents called parts 2 and parts 3. And if you want to view the PDF, you can click on this icon here. Or if you want to extract text from that PDF, I can click on this item here. If I want to search for text within this particular PDF text, if I search for the word fee, we'll make use of MarkLogic's built-in search engine to highlight the relevant text for us. Now, here what I'm doing is I'm searching within just one document. It's also possible to do another search across all the PDFs associated with this particular investment advisor. So I'm going to search for fee again, and I'm going to do within 10 words of client. If I select find, it's now searched through all the text files that have been extracted from these PDF documents and just extracted out the relevant paragraphs containing these particular words. Okay, so that's analyzing binary data or PDFs. Other things that you can do is you can check the quality of this firm's relationships. Here we're now looking at the individual registered investment advisors. That's effectively the employees who work for this particular organization. And you can see that we have quite a few of them, 524. Now, a number of them have DRPs associated with them. So if I filter for yes here, you can see that here first we have Aaron James Marburg. If I want to view his information, now this information actually came in as a CSV. We've downloaded it, structured it. We're now going to link it to external data made available via the SEC and also via FINRA. So if I click on this view link here, you can see I have information about this individual. I have his name, I have his former employment history, all the exams that he's passed, together with disclosure reporting pages, whether he's been subject to any kind of regulatory investigation, etc. And we can see here that we have one yes, which is a customer complaint. So if we want to learn a little bit more about that, what I do is I click on this button here and it takes me to the website where he's referenced. And you can see here that we have an item, a cell in red. If I click on it and then expand the information here, we can see that we have some background to this particular complaint. So that's the CSV data associated with investment advisor representatives, the people who work for this particular investment advisor. If I want to learn a little bit more about the securities, the investments that this firm has, I can click on this tab here, which is 13F. And here we're going to learn a little bit about the securities that this particular investment advisor invests in. And this data originates via form 13F. Now, what you're seeing at the moment at the top here is a commercial vendors data set. It's not only the regulators who hold this kind of information, but also commercial vendors. So what we're doing here is we're seeing the commercial vendor data, and I'm now going to do a live scrape of the SEC website to see what the SEC EDGAR system has for this particular vendor. And we can see here that I can click on all the historical data for this particular investment advisor, or I can just focus on the latest subset of data. And if I click this button here, this is a live scrape, and it's going to pull in an XML file. And you can see that we have equivalent data. You can also capture information about relationships. So if I click on this tab here, you know, the old saying, you're judged by the company you keep. What we're actually seeing here is all the possible relationships that this particular firm could have in terms of its doing business. Where you see something in red, that means that one or more of those particular entities, so a related person or a direct owner, an executive officer, has one or more disclosure reporting pages associated with them. So this gives you a kind of perspective of not only what's this firm's relationships, or how does this firm conduct its business, but it also provides you with information about how its counterparties conduct their own business as well. It is also possible using the system to perform OSINT, open source intelligence. So you can access all the websites associated with this particular company, and you can also perform reputation searches. So what happens here is that we take the names of entities or key individuals that work in this particular organization, and then attach to each of those names certain keywords like fraud, investigation, or litigation, and perform Google searches. You can also look at RSS feeds, for example, to extract information, press releases, and we can bring all this information into the city. So that's operating at the the micro level. I'm looking at a particular firm. What we can also do using the system is to go to the macro level. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to perform a structured query. And our users can do this. You don't need a developer to do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, I want to look at all, out of the 20,000 investment advisors we've got within the system, I want to find or do some queries in connection with a number of them that match certain criteria. Now you can define your queries and save them and recycle them for further use. So I'm going to click on this link here. And what effectively we're doing is we've constructed a query and saved it that wants to identify all investment advisors that have regulatory assets under management that's equal to or greater than $5 billion. And if I query the database, and you can see how quick this is, we can see that we have 21 results. In fact, I've added something here. I'm going to query it again. We have 33 results. I'm now going to refine this particular query because I want to limit my results to each investment advisor that's established in the jurisdiction of Delaware. So if I click on Form 3 here, what I'm going to do is choose a particular data point, so state of organization. And we can see here that I've got various operators available to me. I'm looking for equals. And the particular value that I'm looking at is Delaware. And I'm going to add this clause. So I'm going to refine it. It's not just looking for all investment advisors with regulatory assets under management greater than or equal to 5 billion. I'm also saying they have to be established in Delaware. So we had 33 results originally, just looking for 5 billion. If I query the database now, we can see that it's reduced to 21. Now, one of the really powerful things that you can do once you've done queries like this is you can perform peer comparisons. So you can see how an investment advisor compares against its competitors and peers. This would have been helpful, for example, if you wanted to spot a Bernie Madoff who is producing returns that just no one else is matching in the market. So what I'm going to now do is go back to Alliance and Bernstein, and I'm going to benchmark Alliance and Bernstein's compensation arrangements against their peers. And how am I determining a peer? Well, I'm basically saying, okay, it's got to have the same regulatory assets under management. So as I'm looking at here, this is the actual assets under management. I'm going to adjust the comparison buckets by saying, okay, let's go 20% less or 20% more. And the particular Form ADV that I'm looking at is compensation arrangements. So I'm going to limit this particular query within the 21 firms that I have found. And what we can see is that we have, for all these questions, 3 possible answers: yes, no, or no. It's not answered. And where you see a color, it indicates this is the answer that this particular investment advisor has given. And you can see here how Alliance Bernstein compares against all its peers. This is very valuable in terms of benchmarking and seeing how the investment advisor you are looking at compares to its peers. Now, that's a very small subset of what this particular application does. MarkLogic has been absolutely magnificent as a tool for us to use. We've been able to do almost everything within it, and our clients love it. And I think that's basically all I've got to say about this. It's proved to be a very spectacular win for us. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be happy to engage with anybody on any topic MarkLogic related.
Fantastic, Michael. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the market for that kind of e-discovery, I mean, what an application. What a huge amount of data available at your fingertips there. It's phenomenal. And I think for those of you that are in different markets, it shows the power of what you can do with MarkLogic. And that's why I love that demo. There are things in there that I think are relevant to every vertical and really hopefully open up some minds to what can be done. There was one quick question I noticed from Imran. Do you have an overall firm rating? And if so, how is it calculated?
That is actually done with our clients. You'll recall that earlier on I said there was a configurable API. Effectively, what we've built is the client can select the data points that they want, and then what they can do is they can assign particular risk factors for particular characteristics, like the type of investment strategy, and also for the nature of the portfolio itself. So what we've done is focused on the source of data, and then provided our clients with a configurable user interface that allows them to generate that particular score. We have one client, for example, in fact 2, that have been involved in the insurance sector for this particular type of data, and they use the system to set the premium that they charge. So
Wow.
the premium is effectively the score for a particular firm.
Wow, impressive. Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. If there are any further questions, please do put them in the chat, and we do have a Q&A session at the end. But yeah, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just share my screen again. Okay, so we're rounding up. I just wanted to give you a quick insight to what's coming up next month in September. We're going to have the ICLR talking about their use of MarkLogic, the International Council for Law Reporting. They've built a really fantastic service called Case Genie, which sort of turns search on its head and looks at things in a very different way as to how you can get legal information out of MarkLogic. So I think that's an interesting one for you all to see. And we've also got a partner, EBCON, who are going to talk about the power of multi-model and why they use MarkLogic and the value that it brings them. If you've got people in your organization that you want to, I wouldn't say give an introduction to MarkLogic, but want to give an idea about the power of MarkLogic and why people use that as a platform and why you don't go with some of the other competitors. From what I've seen of that EBCON presentation, I think that'd be a really good starter for people to understand the power of what you can do. We're also going to have an update from the product management team. There's a couple of new pieces of development that they've done that I think would be really interesting to the community. So they're going to present as well. So if you want, sign up via the link there. I think the event goes live early next week, so you'll be able to sign up. And there'll also be links in the review that we send out post this call. Looking further afield, in October, we heard from lots of people that you want to hear more about Semaphore and how Semaphore can be used with MarkLogic to add value. So we're going to have a dedicated session around Semaphore in October. We'll have some demos, some discussions, maybe some customer demos too. And then in November, we're actually going to touch on geospatial. There's lots of people out there that have got geospatial data in their data sets and perhaps not aware of what MarkLogic can do with geospatial. So we're going to be presenting some information on that. We've got Clever Llama's guys presenting some of the work they've done in the past. We've also got Sensing Clues, a customer using MarkLogic and how they're using geospatial with their data set. So I think that's really interesting. If you've got any kind of geo or addresses, geospatial information, there's a lot you can do with MarkLogic. So with that, I will have a quick look and see if we have had any further questions in. Let's have a look here. No, nothing's come in yet. Okay, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I think all the speakers gave their contact details in the chat as well. So again, please reach out to them if you have anything following the session. And with that, I want to say thank you all for attending. I hope it's been useful, and we will see you next month.